Hello, welcome to the Expat Pod. My name is James, your host, and today I am with Elsa, who is a French lady living in America.
Hi, Janelle. Thank you so much for having me.
So, hey, and welcome to section 1 of the podcast, all about getting there. So, Elsa, you live in New York, New York, right? So, why did you move, and what was the purpose?
I moved because I wanted to live in a English-speaking country. I was working in Europe, and I had lived in Mexico for a year, so I was very fluent in Spanish, but I was behind in English. So I was like, for work, I was a consultant, and I was traveling all over Europe. And at some point, I was like, no, I don't get the jokes. So I'm like, oh, I really have to like go and live abroad because I had done that in Mexico, and it worked very, very fast and was an amazing experience. So I wanted to have kind of the same experience in a different culture country. So yeah.
And to Mexico, why did you move there? I didn't know you lived in Mexico, but that's really cool as well. Was it Mexico City or was it somewhere else?
It was somewhere else. It's called León, Guanajuato. Is in the state of Guanajuato. So it's a very beautiful state. It's a little bit north of Mexico City. I moved there because I did a business school, and my business school would require to do a year abroad. So everybody would apply everywhere in the world. And I had this dream to go to Latin America because I was so passionate about the language, the culture, and it was, the first occasion for me to travel like that far. So yeah, I was I mean, depending on your grades, you go wherever you want to go. And I was fortunate enough to be able to go where my first choice was. So was Mexico.
Oh, wow, and what was that like? Mexico.
It was a dream life. No, I loved it. I worked as a French teacher. I was studying at the same time. I mean, with my face right now, you don't realize, but I was a model. So I did photos. I did a few small jobs. I traveled all over Mexico, hitchhiking. My brother went. He was living at the time in Kathmandu in Nepal, and he came to Mexico to visit with me. So we hitchhiked for a month, like sleeping, on the beach, and the dream life.
Really cool. Yeah, I'm quite jealous of that. I mean, you can always do it, but never too late. But how the trip to Mexico, did your university help you with the move, or did you have to apply yourself? What was the support you got?
So no, yeah, actually the school is helping you a lot. They put you in contact even with local students, so you can, if you want, you can rent the same place they're renting. So yeah, it's you just have to buy your tickets, the university fees already in the kind of the price of what you're paying for the university in France, which is a bargain, especially if you go to the US, but don't tell a US student that. Because it's much more expensive anyway. But yeah, it's just, you don't have to do much except buying your flight ticket, I guess. Yeah. And make sure you have a place where when you arrive. So yeah, we just went in the same place former French student had rented, and also was very convenient.
And did you have to did you have to sort your own rent out, or did that help you? You said you found a former French student rent. Was that off your own back, or was that helpful from the university?
Yes, the university would help actually. Just give you contacts, and also like depending on I mean, either you already know friends who are also going to Mexico, or they put you in contact with students who are like going there.
And then visas. Did you need a visa to study in Mexico, or because it was a student visa, you were?
Yeah, it's a student visa for a year, and I made sure I would stay up to the very last day of my visa. Even though they were how you call it, the pig flu, remember at the time?
Swine flu.
Yeah, exactly.
I also went to Mexico at the same time as well.
Yeah, so almost every business school would repatriate their students, but not my school. So we're like, hey, you know what? If Mexican are staying, we're also staying. So we didn't had, which was great. We had final exam, and we had continued exams. So it was very
nice. And then, so going from Mexico, did you go back to France to finish your education and then go to the US?
Yes, so I finished my master's degree in France for another year, where actually a company paid for my studies while I was working at the same time. So I didn't have to pay my last year. I was actually getting paid for studying, which is an amazing program in France. Yes. And then it gives you also like a working experience when you leave, the school. So it's very, very great. And then I had my first job, and I worked 2 years in Paris, and then I did this choice where I started to work for a startup, and everybody was like, "What are you doing? You have a master's degree in finance and audit. You should work for a big four, like a big company. It's very risky to work for a startup." And I was like, "I don't care. I just wanna." I wanted to work the fastest abroad, and I knew that if I would join a big company, it would take me at least 4 years or 5. Whatever. And with this company, I knew I could have a 6-month program where I would learn the software, and then I could be a consultant. And after 6 months, I would be traveling in Europe. So I was like, okay, this is exactly what I want to do. I want to travel the world, and so that's what I did for 3.5 years. And then I wanted to go further and further away. And I was like, oh, you know what? I wanna actually live abroad. So they were like, well, I had an offer in London, and they were like, oh, maybe we have something in New York if you're more interested. And if you want to stay. And I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe it's a good idea. London might be too close to France. I would come back every weekend maybe. So I accepted the New York offer. I mean, I didn't accept. I applied for it, and I wasn't the only one interested. But yeah, I got the job. And when you apply if you have the desire to work in the US, it's kind of complicated in terms of visa. You do need to, the kind of the easiest is to find a sponsorship. So basically you need to work for a company for at least 3 years for them to sponsor you, and so they can send you from Europe to the US. That's the easiest. So that's what I've done. I had like 3 years experience, so it was perfect. You still need to justify why they send you and not someone else. So you have to justify specific, expertise or specific skills that you develop for these years. And you would work for only company you have, obviously, are present in Europe and in the US.
Oh, wow. But yeah, I know, because I looked at engineering jobs because I'm an engineer by trade, and I work in electric cars, and there's quite a lot of electric car companies in the US, mainly California. And I knew a recruiter when I was graduating, like, oh, how can I get a job at Tesla or at Lucid? And they're like, well, it's very difficult.
Yeah, actually, when you're a student, if you're still working, there's this J1 student visa you can have, and where after studying you have a year where you can work. So you have a year to, prove you worth it, and maybe get a company sponsor you. What happened, one of my friends actually applied to my company, and my company then applied for her green card. So after a J1, you can convert it into a green card, but yeah, you have to obviously work your ass off for a year at least. And if you don't, then yeah, you have to leave after the year.
Yeah, I've already had a J1 visa, because when I went to work in a summer camp, they gave you a J1 visa for 3 months.
Yes.
And then traveled for 30 days or 60 days, I think.
Yes.
Maybe it's 90 days. A period of time anyway, traveling, which was good fun. Yeah. Anything more you want to kind of give information about how to get to the US from Europe?
No, yeah, absolutely. It's much easier if you get the sponsorship before arriving. I think it's almost impossible after. There's no way, you arrive in the US and then you only have, 3 months. And I mean, you can make contact and maybe in 3 months, see if you could work back in Europe having this contact. But yeah, it's becoming harder and harder. But if you dream it, you can do it. It's just like make sure you are very aware about the different visa type, and I don't know, like there are visa for artists and for journalists and for experts. So make sure that if you want, or I don't know, if you are like a lawyer, you have to basically start from scratch in the US. So it's like you really need to make your own investigation before.
Perfect. Well, thank you. It's a great way to end section 1. So hello and welcome to section 2 of the podcast, all about being there. And so Elsa, you went to Mexico first. Tell me about your first impressions of that when you, I guess, arrived for studying. What was your first thoughts when you arrived?
Oh, wow. Everybody was so very nice. It was kind of easy to talk to people. Everybody would be, try to help you navigate, or try to help you, subscribe to the class you wanted to do, whatever. So yeah, people are very welcoming. The food is fantastic. I mean, I already said it. For me, it was a dream. I loved everything about it. And the students, the culture, it was very easy. Even, I was hitchhiking and everybody was like, oh my God, it's very dangerous. I would listen to local and they would tell me, you know what, you should go this way. Everybody's like, yeah, it was fantastic. I don't know what to say. Like, I recommend it to everyone.
I think comparing that to the US, then when you arrived in the US, obviously it was for work. How did you find, I guess, the comparison between Mexico and the US, but also Europe and the US from first impression?
Oh wow, it's very different. So especially because it was for work as well. But I think mostly for Europeans, we have the impression we know the US culture because we see TV shows, we read books, we have lots of like information coming from the US. So from us, it's like we kind of know, but we don't really know. So when you arrive, you're like, oh wait, yeah, of course, like the US are straightforward, but actually they're not. So there are lots of way to communicate, and yeah, for me it was like I often say this story where I actually had a 3 months coaching when I arrived because I was too straightforward. As a French person, we are very, very straightforward. And I was like, oh, you know what? I think New York is going to be the same. It's very ambitious. So you can be very straightforward with people. But I wasn't able to be as straightforward. So I would, people would be like kind of shocked based on what I would say. So yeah, I had a 3 months coaching from a British company, which was very helpful to understand the culture difference, the way you talk to someone, you approach someone, the way you talk to your team, the way you talk to a manager, like it was very interesting. In every culture you have these, kind of natural way, but as well like respectful way to talk to people. So it depends. I mean, Japanese culture is also like very, very specific, where you have, depending on who you talk to, like whatever. But yeah, it was super, super useful for me to just also like, make sure, like, I would say if someone is talking to me, for instance, I would have habits, and I would, make sure I would say, oh, I hear you, I hear what you say. before saying anything that I would think. Or I would be like, I would do, I don't know if you heard about it, the sandwich thing where
Oh,
you
the compliment sandwich.
you you have to say something positive, then you can say something kind of negative, but you end up like in the middle saying something like, hopeful, like. So not never say something negative without saying something positive and hopeful, like it was very interesting to see the structure of it, like, because yeah, to make sure you fit in the culture.
I mean, I think, being British, I thought we were quite standoffish in England, and then I moved to Sweden, and it's a whole other level of being standoffish. They avoid conflict
Yeah.
like it's their worst nightmare.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm quite pushy, but I know a lot of French people, and
Yeah. No, we're so straightforward. If it would be the opposite. If you have an issue and you don't go to us directly, we are so mad about it. Like, why you didn't come to me? Why you didn't talk to me? Like, you can talk to me. Like, tell me what's going on. Like, what the heck? So yeah.
I think it's a Southern European thing
Yeah.
as well, because I know my friends from Italy and Spain are also very, I guess, like Latin and fiery. It's a passion.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, and in the US, I would, if you have an escalation, like with a client whoever, they would escalate the issue to your manager, and then your manager bring the issue to you, and then you have to bring it to your team a different way. So you have two levels of interpretation to make sure you bring the correct message to the direct to the person who is like primarily intended to. So yeah, it's different, and all this has to be, it's informal, and then you learn about it.
And going around with the kind of the culture of the countries, how are you? For me, when I moved as an adult to Sweden, socially it was difficult because you're not going for studying, because when you study, you go in with a bunch of students who are all the same situation, all looking to socialize with everyone else. But being an adult going to work, you have to really focus on friendships, and for that, I found playing sport helped. Is that something you found compared to Mexico, where you went as a student? It was really easy to make friends, and the US.
Yeah, I think it's very different, especially because it's like school versus like working environment. People have different priorities. Do you prioritize your coworker after work or your family, and depending on your industry and so on. So there's a structure to it. I think for me at the beginning was very hard to, and of course I'm in New York, so it was very hard to make friends with Americans. So I would be, and because it's easier, it's easier to go to the culture, so for me it was very easy to make Mexican friends and, like European friends, and in New York now so many different people, and to make, I don't know, like Indian friends. But I had at some point after 5 years, I was like, you know what? I think I don't have any American friends. But like, okay, but let me work on it, like it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I started like opening kind of my circle and be like, trying to invite, random American people I would meet, in a bar, or like through friends, and understand why, sometimes wouldn't be. But it's also depending on the person, sometimes you just don't have a match with a person, it's okay, it's not an issue. We're not supposed to be all friends. I mean, all close friends. Yeah, but yeah, it was difficult at the beginning to make kind of local friends. Yeah.
Yeah, I did find the same thing. Internationals seem to hang out with other internationals because they're, as I said before, when you go for work, you don't know many people, and you have to like try and break into people's friendship groups. And if you're kind of from the country, you have a much wider friendship group already, so you're not looking for more friends. But if you're international, then you only know a handful of people, and like adding a new friend is never a problem, and you're always looking to find someone else to do something. But going along with that, then was it easier to find like things or hobbies that you like to do in the US?
Oh yes.
Compared to home.
You can see this. I find an amazing hobby. Yes, so I'm a dancer, I'm a runner, I'm a biker, And for me, New York was okay. At the beginning, I had this image of, New York being a huge city, and I'm a huge outdoor person. And I was like, oh my God, I won't be able to do all these things that I used to, right? And I arrived in New York, and I'm like amazed by, oh my God, I'm 45 minutes from the beach. I'm an hour from the mountain. So and everybody's like very outdoor, like everybody like practice a sport like outside, or go to the gym during the winter for the lazy one. No, I'm kidding. but yes, they are, and there are like meetup groups. There are like, people they really like to create groups and go for a run or go for a hike. So that would be like the way you can make kind of local friends. You go for a hike on Sunday, and you make friends, and you hang out with them later for just to go to a bar, to go to a museum, or to go to an exhibition, or to go to a concert. So for me, it was like an amazing place to develop even more my passion for my hobbies, and especially for biking. I'm a huge biker. That's how I.
Yeah, I see on your Instagram account. Yes, but also when I was in New York, I used to play beach volleyball in Central Park,
Oh
and I
yes,
played there every day for a week, and that was such a great place to meet loads of like random people. And so I
absolutely. I
play a
used
lot in.
to go to Central Park as well.
Yeah, I mean the beach volleyball. There's two courts, one for people who are really good, and then the one
Yes.
for the beginners.
Yeah.
And it's such a good atmosphere. And again, mainly people who aren't local, not American.
I didn't know that one.
Sorry, my Alexa's going on. Loads of people from all over the world. A lot of people from Europe were playing it, which was great fun. And a good way of asking people when I was traveling for some advice on where to go in the city. So I really enjoy New York for that. Okay, perfect. And then I guess is there anything more you notice between I guess France, Mexico, and the US? Any kind of big changes you've noticed since being there and living there?
Yes, I mean in France, we prepare food together, and we sit on a table, and we eat, and we share the food, and we talk for hours. We are very known for taking lunch break for 1-2 hours, especially with coworkers for lunch, and then with family, and for us it's very important. You have your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner. And even before dinner, you have what we call apéro, where we have drinks and a few peanuts and, or cheese, whatever. So yes, the culture is very, very different in the US. In the US, New York it's slightly different because they are aware that the food is very important for their health. So they tend to eat healthier, and it's very known that if you sit down and don't watch TV while eating is much better for you, and eating slow and all these things. So people are aware, but still they might not have it as a habit, as opposed to in my French culture, for instance, or even the Mexican culture is very big on the food and sharing the food with other and preparing the food with love and care, and to make sure everybody can enjoy it. And in the US, yes,
Yeah, the food is the main event.
yes,
The food becomes the main event, whereas in America it feels like, or in England as well, I guess, the food is the kind of sub thing for the event you're doing or watching.
yeah, exactly. And that's how you attract people. Even like if you have good food, like people would come to your event. If you don't, then they don't go. And no, it was very interesting because my company is French culture kind of, and we would give so for people to come to the office, we used to do like free Wednesday lunch, and Wednesday was the day everybody would come to the office, because you have free lunch, and then it's good food, so it's very interesting, and also like even with my friends or my very very close, everywhere I go, for me it's like so important to sit down and prepare food and share the food. And some people, they're like, just American would be more like they don't really care, they can have a bag of chips and they can they can skip a meal, and for me, it's like there's no way I'm gonna skip a meal, you know. So it's all these differences now. Very yeah, it's very, I don't know. It's unique. It's interesting.
That's great. And on topic of food, I know you're vegan. How have you found it being vegan in New York compared to France? Or
Oh
were
my
you
god,
vegan in
New York
France
is
before you left?
paradise. And back in France, I'm an extremist. People, they're like, they really think that, this is ridiculous. I mean, French people really think it's ridiculous, and they don't really understand why I'm vegan. Even though they're like, French people are so aware about the environment. If we do comparison, like this between American and French people, I do think French people, they recycle, they do their compost, they lower their meat consumption, they don't consume too much water, or like they don't waste so much food, and they are so aware of the environment and everything. But because the food is like, it's a national thing you cannot really touch. Exactly. So here in New York, because and it's like in the UK. In the UK, the population of vegan exploding, because it's not in their nature to think too much about the food, and they really don't care. In the US, they're also very open to people who are like gluten free or lactose intolerant, or well, like whatever. And in France, people would be like so judgmental. They're like, oh, so what? Oh, so I cannot cook anything because you don't eat anything. But it's like, no, I eat things, but there are things I cannot, or I don't eat, right? So it's very different. Where like French people can be so close-minded related to the food people could eat, or for value they don't want to eat. So that's very interesting. So that's why, like, for me, New York is like, it's a paradise, because first of all, I have a vegan restaurant in every block. And yes, absolutely. There are like, I don't know, I have a list of the vegan restaurant. There must be like 500 restaurants in New York. It's crazy. There is the only 3-star Michelin restaurant, vegan restaurant in New York. All over the world, there is no other 3-star restaurant. Yeah,
They
for
start
me, it's
using
like,
green Michelin stars, haven't they? I think
sorry?
they have like green. They have green Michelin stars, I believe. Now I think it's green, which is like a sustainable restaurant as well,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
which is also interesting.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so yeah, very, very different in terms of yeah, friends will be more traditional in a way, related to food.
Yeah, I guess your point of France being more as a society better at environmental impacts, be it recycling, etc., kind of might outweigh if you have one meat dish a week as opposed, but you actually do everything else, and that meat is from the farm down the road, opposed to, I guess, McDonald's burgers, which might be from the other side of the country or the world. It's the balance of well, it becomes a big debate. Really, is where does the food come from? With you on the vegan side, though, it should be much better for the environment. And then maybe over time we can whittle back to having locally sourced meat if it was from literally your next door neighbor or something. I think we're 50 years from that happening. It's quite interesting to understand. But I think that's enough for section 2. Go into section 3.
That's
So, hey, and welcome to section 3 of the podcast. All about, it's kind of a review of your time. I still haven't named it, which is annoying. But yeah, it's just you're talking about your favorite. What is your favorite part of Mexico when you were there? What was your favorite thing to do?
Oh wow! Every part is like so precious and so fantastic. And I have, many people ask me, where they should go studying and where they should go, like travel. And for me, like, you can go anywhere, you can have the best experience. So for me, like, I had this joke, I'm French, so I have this joke with Belgium sometime where I would be, you could go to Belgium and have this fantastic abroad experience, like it's okay, it's next door, but like you make your own experience. So for me, like when people are like, oh, what's your favorite thing? I'm like, I have a hard time because there's something beautiful in every single state, especially Mexico. Mainly not so much about the US, but it's a different story.
Because you've traveled through, you've traveled.
Yeah, I biked from New York to San Francisco, and then I went to San Diego. So I see a lot, especially, yeah, like some state would be like so focused into monoculture. So you only see cornfields, and you lack so much diversity that the landscape is not. I mean, became like something very standardized and like cornfields everywhere and cattle fields. So it's kind of pretty sad to see, as opposed to other country where they really like conserve their diversity, like France or even Mexico, even though it's in the north of Mexico. But yeah, we tend to make sure we have this diversity of fields and the seeds we are using. So yeah, it's a huge difference between the country.
So I guess based on your answer, then your biggest advice to someone is probably be enjoy wherever you're traveling because you'll find a gem somewhere.
Yes, honestly, especially if you're like, if you, I was reading a book yesterday. It's a bag journal. It's a backpacking journal, and there's this guy who is like from the UK, and he's used to travel all over the world, and so he's like, you know what, I'm gonna bike from southwest of England and then go to northeast of England. So he's like, doing a diagonal of England biking. And there are so many things that you don't see, or because there's a different season, like everything can be very different depending on the time you're going. You could have a festival that makes a shitty city beautiful, like that.
Completely.
Like it's yeah, right. So
I mean, I think the bike ride is Land's End to John Groats, which is a really popular ride from Cornwall to Scotland.
Yeah.
And yeah, you go through the whole country, and it's on my list to do, but I've not yet got to it. One day.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, I think it's a lot about what are you looking for? Like, are you looking for to do whatever other people have done already, or do you know? I mean, it's pretty hard. So also you have to do kind of an introspection about, okay, what do I like, and based on what do you like, then the experience can be very different. I don't know if you like visiting coffee shop and go on small hikes, or if you like shopping, or it's very different.
I guess it's knowing what you want to get out of the experience, and then you can tailor it to your own kind of desires and do some research maybe. But also going in open-minded is also quite nice. I like just wandering freely without knowing where I'm going, and you stumble across something majestic like a coffee shop or
yeah. I'm kind of the same. I don't like to be too organized, and I like to have a space for surprise or space for wonder, or yeah, exactly.
Completely. And then so you obviously give some advice for traveling. What advice would you give someone traveling to the US for work? What should they expect to see if they're European? What's the biggest difference? I guess holidays is all I could think of.
To travel to work, if assuming they have a visa already planned, or assuming they don't?
Assuming if someone is looking to move from Europe or France to America, what piece of advice would you give someone to, I guess, acclimatize quickly?
Wow. Yeah, the work culture is very different between the US and Europe. I think mostly based on in the US, they really don't have much vacation. So sometimes you can have as low as 2 weeks, which is nothing. So because they don't have much vacation, they would have lowered, they would work less during the day. So most of the time is very known for the 9 to 5, even though you might work a little bit more. But because you have so less vacation, they work less during the day. That would be the stereotype. then depend on your industry, it depends on your job, what you're doing. And obviously, some location would be hard worker, like New York, San Francisco, stuff like that. And in France or in Europe, yes, we the priority is the work quality life. So love vacation. And even the UK, they did an amazing thing where instead of having five days a week, they do 4 days a week, right?
In some companies, yeah, which has not gotten to my company yet. But I did know there was a big trial after COVID of 4-day weeks, and a lot of companies have stayed with it. They're saying, "Oh, your productivity stayed up, but you're only working 4 days, so maybe that's 30 odd hours a week rather than 40." Which helps people get the extra day.
So yeah, I mean, depending on the country, but we in Europe we tend to be a little bit more productive, I would say, just because we have other priorities probably. And for instance, like in Denmark, it's very important for them to make sure they work and have also like they end work at like 3 or 4 p.m. So yeah, work-life balance is very important. But then you go to most capital, you would see like hard worker everywhere. It really depends on what you're looking for and what's your balance. Also, I think it also depends on how old you are. If you've been working your ass off your entire career, you might want a break or not.
Or you might burn out, maybe.
Yeah. So it's very important to keep a balance. Besides work, absolutely.
Perfect. And kind of my last question is, what's your favorite saying in America? What's the favorite little local phrase which you use today or just like listening to?
In New York, especially, I really like fake it until you make it.
I mean, that is pretty synonymous with America. So thank you, Elsa, for joining me on this podcast. I really appreciate your time and learning more about your experience in Mexico and in the States. It's really interesting to understand like how you got across and your requirements to, you chose a startup rather than a bigger financial consultancy to be able to travel abroad. That's very kind of brave, and I guess the route most people won't take. So yeah, thank you for sharing the information with me, and hopefully people who listen in and watch will get some really good advice and inspiration to follow your footsteps. Is there anything you want to say more, or do you want to, I guess, share your social media accounts so people can come and see more of your stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow my crazy adventure about like zero waste, veganism, biking, or also like just also human experience through my Instagram account, which is Heal My Planet. That's it. Thank you so much, James, for having me.
It's worth following because it's quite funny, and I guess your most recent stuff has been shocking, but you've made it so humorous in the state of us falling off a bike. So yeah, well done you for finding the humor in such an incident. And as always, if you did find something insightful or useful from this podcast, please get in touch. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, and we'll see you next time.